Hello and welcome to another Facts and Dimensions tutorial video. In this video, I'm going to explain the ODS schema and ODS API schema and the ONS Codes schema in UKHD, otherwise more recently known as just Facts and Dimensions now. The purpose of this video is mainly to show you what you're supposed to use and when, and also to explain the issue around some instances of two versions of the truth, which is obviously far from ideal. And then finally about what we're going to do about it. So, what I want to start with is what we've got. So we have all the ODS tables. I'm connected to the Azure DB. If you want to have all the ODS tables showing in your database too, run this procedure and set the parameter schema name to ODS and they will all appear. You should already have the ODS API schema tables. If not, just run it again with ODS underscore API. And you should also have the ONS Codes schema tables. And if not, again, run that procedure. So a little bit of history first. We now supply all of our data via Azure, as you know. But when we started back in 2012, it was just one SQL database called UK Health Dimensions, which we used to supply as a downloadable MDF file that you would attach to your server. We do actually still supply the UKHD element database like that for those customers that require it, but that is becoming decreasingly the preference because we also have it available in Azure. We also have the FD data sync tool for copying individual tables, and there's a different video for that to see how that works. But mainly, the UKHD was a few hundred megabytes when we started. It's now well over 100 gigabytes. So some customers are even finding that they can't unzip the database because it's too big. Anyway, so when we started, we just had these ODS tables, not the ones with all underscore, just the ODS ones, right? To work out what source for data goes into each table, you can just query this table here. And if you're in Azure, then you can query this. And if you're using the downloadable copy, that is a view that is literally just returning the contents of this table here. The somewhat misleadingly called ODS.ods file name to table lookup. That table actually has everything that we store in the original UKHD database. So to see what file feeds, say, let's go for archive GPs, for example. You can search the table name. And you can see the file feeding that is egparc.csv. And you can see in the notes that we're getting it from a TrudPack 3. Now, I'll move over to where we're getting our data from. There's this website. This is the Trud website. This is where they still deliver zip file, ready-made zip packs. And this particular URL I'm on here is where you can get the weekly Trud packs that have a handful of weekly updated tables, the branches and the GPs and the GP practices, and the membership, GP practice to commissioner, and also the monthly and quarterly ones, which have a lot more things like the grid all file, which is all the postcodes and a whole load of location data sets. Now, NHS Digital have more recently created this tool called the ODS API, which is really excellent. Both the packs in this Trud pack and the this API get their data from the same place, essentially. So NHS Digital have a system called Oscar that they use to manage their ODS data. The Trud packs, which are come out with the monthly ones that come out monthly, they will extract the data from Oscar during the month and then put them all together and release a pack at the end of the month. So that means the data in the pack may well be 7 or more days out of date by the time it gets released. The API gets its data from the same source, but it gets its data every single night, and it is bang up to date as at the data as they had it on that night. Particularly useful for obviously more up-to-date data, but if you think about April, where a lot of changes can happen in the NHS, and relying on the TRUD packs, you'll be waiting to the end of April to find out what those changes are. But with the API, you'll get those changes immediately. So that's one reason that we've started using the ODS API. The other reason is the ODS API provides the data in JSON format or XML. And the reason they do that is because that way you can have an infinite way of describing the data. The CSV files, however, are flat files. They've also got this thing called the ODS data point, where you can actually extract the files from the API, but in that format that we're used to from the CSV files, just like from the TRUD packs. So what I want to point out is going back to the ODS API, you can have all of the different ways of organizing it. One of the reasons that's so useful is, for example, when Andrew Lansley made several changes to the NHS, and again, lots of changes happened recently with integrated care boards and such. This way of delivering the data is absolutely future-proofed. They can handle unlimited relationships and unlimited roles. So this, I've brought up Lensfield Medical Practice, and as you can see, it's got 2 roles, 0 and 1, but it could have any number of roles, both with or without end dates, and multiple relationships. In this one, I've got 6 relationships, some of them with end dates, some of them without end dates. So it's very, very, very versatile. The old CSV files, which this system recreates the design of, is fine. There's 2 columns here though: national grouping and higher level health geography. Those fields are not entirely reliable. The way they're calculated is somewhat arcane, and this is what's been explained to us by NHS Digital. And they recommend that you shouldn't really officially use these. If you want to get the relationships to a code, it is better to use the ODS API and pick which relationship you're interested in for your needs. Anyway, the reason I cover all this, the TRUD packs with the old CSV files, the ODS data point that recreates the CSV format from the ODS API, and the ODS API, is because we've got the ODS tables from the TRUD packs, and we've got the ODS API tables from the API, which means we've got 2 versions of the truth. Now, the way we're going to solve this, just to jump ahead a little bit, is we are planning on creating views to replace these tables that are exactly the same as the table definition, but that get their data from the API. And having discussed this with NHS Digital, we've agreed that we're not going to use this system because they don't really recommend using these columns anyway, which means we can do an exact copy of those format as long as we just leave these blank and allow the customer to derive the groupings themselves. That is a plan, and we have a topic highlighted on the forum where a discussion on that is ongoing as at November 2022. So if you're watching this months into the future, we've probably already done it. So the ODS tables here, that's all the original ones. Now, there's also these all tables. They've all come out, they all got added into this system at different points in time. First of all was consultants and GP and GDP practices, GPs and GDPs, providers and purchasers. And they are literally exactly the same as the underlying tables, but just merged together. The only reason being to save users effort in pulling together several similar tables. So, for example, with all providers, if I just pull out the source table, this is what you have in these all tables. You can see the underlying tables that make up that one table. So although it looks like 2 versions of the truth, they are exactly the same. If you use those underlying tables or this one, you'll be getting the same stuff, so that's fine. That was just purely for convenience. Same with the purchasers one. Do the same query to see where they come from. and the GPs and GDPs, and the GP and GDP practices. The all providers and purchasers one is simply these two added together. The consultants one is the consultant tables: English dental, English hospital, Welsh, and a few extra the default codes. The reason there's two consultant tables is because that one was designed to just return one record per consultant, where we randomly picked one of the specialties that the consultant has. But shortly after we released that, but also after several customers had already started coding to use that, and anyway, it's useful to have one code per consultant, we were asked to make this table, which differentiates between the combination of consultant and the location they're at and the specialty they're at. So they're both in there. Next, I want to say about all codes. Now, all codes has all of the ODS codes from the ODS API and any ODS codes from the other tables that are actually not in the ODS API yet. So this one is very useful if you just simply want a code and its name and you just don't know which table to go to. Just go ahead and use this one. Then there is this table here, which is ODS and ONS codes. That is everything from the ODS.all codes plus everything from the ONS codes change history. And I'm going to talk about the ONS codes change history shortly. So that's a good, even bigger table when you need codes from ONS and ODS. So that sort of explains the difference between all of these. Where we get them from, you know that you can go to the release details.all available tables to get the URL where we get different, and look up a table to see where we get the data from, because it has the URL in there. But the CRUD packs are from here, like I said, and the API is from there. And the ONS codes is from here, geoportal.statistics.gov.uk. Now, using these tables, my recommendation is to use the ODS API tables as a primary source of where you get your codes from. And I would recommend using this view here or this table here. This table for the ODS code and description. Let's just do an example. And this view where we've combined relationships as well into the organization code and the dates so that you can return the relationships all in the same go without having to rewrite all of the code. We have actually scripted out the code from this view, and that's available on the forum. I'll just demo it now. And this only returns where is latest equals 1, so there is no is latest field in this one. That's better. So here, we've already joined up the relationships and the dates and made it into here. Now you can see with this code, just as per the results from the API, there are 6 relationships: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you've got who they're related to, what the relationship type is, and the start and end date, or just start date, and whether it's active or not. And that's all in here. So you can actually see if a relation, you can see that, for example, Lensfield Medical Practice is related to 4 different commissioners, commissioned by. If we add in and operational relationship end date is null, that will just get the ones that are current. And you can see, so currently, Lensfield Medical Practice is a partner to CAM Medical PCN. It's also a COVID-nominated payee for CAM Medical PCN and is commissioned by NHS Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, ICB, old CCG. And then we could just put in the PCN, just to go up the tree. We can see that CAM Medical PCN is commissioned by OCX, which is the NHS Cambridgeshire and Peterborough sub-ICB, old CCG. If we put that in, you can see that is located in the geography of QUE, which is NHS Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Integrated Care Board. And if we put that in here, that is a subdivision of East of England Commissioning Region. Now, whenever any changes happen, they will be fed directly into the API, and that means we will pick them up. So you don't need to actively keep on top of who's related to who and when and what type of relationship and whether it's active or not or anything like that, because we're doing it. So just use this data set. Everyone in the NHS, well, all of our customers in the NHS, which is pretty much all the commissioners, lots of hospitals, everyone, they're all using this. So if you all just use this, then you're on the same version of the truth, yeah? Any codes that aren't in there, which as I record this video includes nurses and consultants and some of the locations, then you would go back to the old ODS tables, which are fed from the CSV files. So that hopefully explains that you should go for the ODS API first, organization SCD, and then go to the ODS codes. And if you just simply want an ODS code and what is the description of it and nothing else, then you could cheat and go for ODS.all codes, and that would do it. Then with ONS codes, if you're using the ONS data stuff, you've got the change history. For some reason, these codes have no name. I don't know why, but that's what the source is. So let's pick out an example where there is actually a name. So here we go. Here we have Flintshire 002B. And if we just chuck in the parent code, we can see the parent of that is Flintshire 002. Also, if you're thinking what type of organization it is, here's the entity code, and you look up the entity code here in the register. So that's W02 equals W02 and is latest equals 1. Super output area middle layer. And the parent of that is Flintshire, and the parent of that is Wales, and that's the top parent. So hopefully that helps you give an idea of how to use this. You've also got the date of introduction, and you've got whether it's live or not. There's also this really handy table, equivalents, where you can get the ONS to ODS code match, which is really, really handy. It only has it if there is actually a match. So I'm just going to filter on where there is matches. So here we go. Hartlepool that's the ONS code, ODS code for it. NHS High Weald Lewes Havens, there's the code for it, 99K and so on. So that really hopefully explains the ODS and ONS codes. One other thing I want to show is NHS111s. They are actually in their own table. And I've just realized I haven't actually added it in, so I'm going to add it in now. So let's just close all this. Start a new query. I can't remember the name of the table, so I'll use the catalog to remind myself. Here it is, other.nhs111s. Let's add that in. Other, what was the table name? Here it is, NHS111s. And now let's query from that. And that's where you get those 111 codes. Now, finally, talking about how to deal with the fact that we've essentially got two versions of the truth with ODS API and ODS. What I recommend is you go to the forum, which you will have the URL. You'll have been given the URL in training, and you will have set yourself up with a login. And go to the topic in the UK Health Dimensions board that is called ODS versus ODS API. And in that, we have discussed what we're going to do about it, and we've put in there the explanation that NHS Digital has given for their recommendation. Essentially, the plan, unless anyone tells us they want us to do something drastically different, is we're going to start replacing ODS tables with views that are exactly the same as the tables, just like data point, with the only problem being that we can't replicate these two fields. And as per NHS Digital's recommendation, which is explained in the forum post, they say that we shouldn't use these anyway. You need to be deriving those relationships from the ODS API. And that concludes it. So thank you very much.